Councilor Joe, Councilor Helen. Few items here. I don't know who wants to start. I believe it's first item is an amendment to the previous legislation for the parking spaces. I don't know if there's anyone that can speak to that.
Yeah, Councilor Carney.
Okay. Who's that?
Sorry, it's Jen Tift.
Okay, you go ahead.
Are you good, Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I'm happy to do it. This request kind of came in through MBD. So this is Jen Tift, Deputy Commissioner MBD. So yeah, councilors, you all had approved a few months ago a very short-term lease of 18 parking spaces in the what I believe is City Lot 21 behind One Lincoln Center for one of the commercial tenants in that building. It was for one of the CPA tenants who needed some extra parking during tax season. You may all be aware that the federal government extended tax season from April 15th to May, I think, 17th. So they basically have just asked for a 1-month extension consistent with the extension of tax season.
Okay, does anyone have? Okay, and then I'll make a motion to put this on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Next item. I don't know who to that one.
What's the next item, Council? Is that the municipal sidewalk agreement?
Oh, the next one is road recon.
Okay, I can speak to that. This is just our annual bonding for the road reconstruction for 21-22 year. The attached document also describes the streets that we plan to pave this year, not to exceed $4 million.
Are there any questions on this one? Okay, hearing none, then I'll make a motion to move this on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Favor? Aye.
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 Okay, great. All right, now it's the municipal sidewalk program.
So this is us resubmitting the letter for the municipal sidewalk program. I followed up with an email on Friday to councilors to address many of the questions and concerns raised during the committee meeting. So if there are any additional ones at this time, just let me know.
Yeah, Corey, a quick question. Maybe you have addressed this and I haven't really, maybe I didn't catch it. What happened to the folks that with the street, with unfinished street that use floor seals? Is the floor seals going to somehow be waived? What's the situation with that?
How does slurry seal impact the sidewalk program?
No, what I'm asking, Corey, is there are streets with no sidewalks, right?
Right.
And they have to pay a fee every 4 years for their streets to get finished. So I'm wondering, how do you factor that in? Is that this going the $95? Is that going to be an addition, or is that going to somehow disappear? I don't know. Is it making, you got it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we see the slurry seal program as separate from the sidewalks. The sidewalk fee, the way that we're approaching it is not based on whether or not you have a sidewalk or how long your sidewalk is. It's based on the usage of the system, and so that's why we spread it evenly across all property owners.
No, but what I'm asking, Corey, is folks that get billed every 4 years for slurry seals. That fee doesn't apply to folks that have sidewalks, right?
So
Commissioner,
I mean, some people, for example, lived on an unimproved street, but I have a sidewalk. So not every unimproved street has no sidewalks, but I think the correlation, I guess, would be pretty close, that if you live on an unimproved street, you probably don't have a sidewalk.
Right. So I guess I get with that. I guess my question become is with this sidewalk fee, is there going to be an addition, or is that because
Maybe, Neil, maybe you can jump in. Maybe I'm just having a mind block here.
no? But what I'm asking, Corey, is like in my district, there are a lot of streets that are unfinished, right?
Right.
And every 4 years, you know, the DPW come through and they do their slur seals and do all of that. And then we all, as neighbors, we share in that street, share the cost of that. You know, something that you know, and something, a fee that finished street don't have to deal with, right? So I'm asking that, you know, as you put this on, obviously we don't, those folks don't have sidewalks, right? What does that become? You know, that's what I'm trying to understand. Are we just, is this all going to be an addition on that cost, or is it what? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah. Go
Corey.
ahead, Counselor.
I mean, so I think one of the things too, right, we should think about is finished streets have the street sweeping charge, right? And they don't. So if you're on an unfinished street, you pay for slurry seal, you don't pay for street sweeping. If you're on a finished street, you pay for street sweeping, you don't pay for slurry seal. So I think your overall point, Counselor, which is this is a new fee, is valid. But the idea that slurry seal that doesn't really have an impact because everyone's paying something somewhere.
Okay, so am I understanding that for the unfinished street, that don't pay sweeping fee, is that that's what you're saying, right, Councilor Green? That those that have unfinished street don't pay sweeping fees.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what does that quantify to in numbers? Because I know based on the length of the street, that's what the cost of the slaughter seals is based on. Is Commissioner Robinson in?
So, I mean, Counselor, is your point really that it should be based on a linear footage, not a flat fee? Is that kind of your main argument?
No, the point I'm trying to understand, Councilor Green, is that if you're going to charge people for sidewalk, that is going to cost for everybody, including those that do not have sidewalk. I'm trying to understand the logic of charging those that have no sidewalks, being given a fee for those for something that they don't use.
Understood.
In their street. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
But that doesn't negate the fact that they still have to pay for service though.
Right.
I mean, that's a two separate.
Right.
That's a two separate charge. So they still going to have to pay for slurry seal no matter what. And then people that have curbs are going to have to pay for sweeping, just like Councilor Green stated. So
I guess the argument might also be that I would assume that on a street that either whether you get slurry seal or your street swept, the people that live on that street drive on that street more than anybody else. I don't know that it's true that a property owner walks up and down their sidewalk more than anybody else. I mean, sidewalks are something that everybody uses. You benefit from sidewalks that are downtown, that are other areas. So even if you live on a street that doesn't have a sidewalk, you still benefit from a safe, functioning, walkable sidewalk throughout the city. I mean, that, you know, there is certainly an argument to be made for the linear feet. And I think, as I mentioned in my email, we did debate that, but really our approach fundamentally for this program is that we all use sidewalks. Whether or not you have a sidewalk is not really the point. We all use sidewalks. We all want a more walkable city, hopefully. And so the cost would be shared equally among all property owners.
Okay, I'm going to let that go there. Now, what about the argument of the legal liability? How did we settle that?
So, I mean, I put in my email that the law department is ready and willing to have that conversation in executive session, as we do for any matters of liability. So once the council has indicated they want to have that conversation, the law department stands ready to have it. They've done extensive research on the issue. So, once it's scheduled, we can talk about that.
Along with that, how is it? I guess what I'm still struggling to wrap my head around is, with all of a sudden, liability in theory would be ours. But how do we justify that? Everyone actually wants this and wants to allow the city to do it. I mean, are we simply just going to state that because we as elected officials by the people are voting yes on this item, that now it's now that deems they've consented and signed off on this? I guess I'm still sort of struggling with that.
Well, I mean, the council approves fees for lots of things that are imposed on folks. So yeah, I mean, I think the idea is that as representatives of the constituents that live in the city, that this is the proposal that we are putting forth that would apply to everybody. And so I guess maybe, I don't know if I'm not understanding the question, but yes, I mean, that's the way it's set up, that the council would approve things that are likely to impact every resident in the city.
I mean, like for, I guess, I don't want to, insurance purposes, liability, that we're signing off on that. I just, are we going to go to each individual property owner and allow them to sign off? Like, is there? I guess it doesn't make any sense to me that we're going to take over, responsibility for somebody's property or their sidewalk, and that we're going to take on the liability for it, and or that they're.
Yeah.
I understand it's a nuanced thing, and I'm just sort of struggling to wrap my head around all of it.
Understandably, and I see that Joe Barry is on here as well. I mean, I think that it's a really important conversation to have about responsibility and liability, and so I think we're ready to have that. It's certainly not. It's an important conversation to have. I don't know, Joe, if you have anything else to add there.
Well, we can get into it in much more detail with our memo in an executive session, but the bottom line, our research shows that the shift to this program will not change the city's liability. We're still under the prior written notice rule, and whether we repair the sidewalk or the property owner repairs the sidewalk, that rule will continue to apply.
But isn't that my understanding that somehow that even if we are bound by that rule, Joe, that somehow that when the incident does happen, that cost is going to somehow be split between the owner and the city?
No, under current law, unless the property owner takes some affirmative measure to create a liability, they're not liable for a trip and fall. It's still the city's responsibility. Our statute just makes them responsible for making the repairs.
So has there been any case brought against the city in regard to sidewalks?
We have had a few over the years, but Todd Long from our office did a lot of research into this, and as I mentioned, excuse me, as I mentioned in one of our previous meetings, we'd be welcome an executive session where we could go into a lot of details about the litigation that has occurred in the past and the potential for future litigation.
I get that, Joe. Now, without going into the details of what the litigation was, would this also warrant going to an executive session if I asked that what was the outcome of the litigation?
I guess I apologize. I wasn't personally involved in it, so I'd need Todd to brief on that matter.
Okay.
And I know we have a settlement on for this coming meeting, so I presume we'll be having an executive session. Maybe we could add this to that calendar.
Well, we can do that if we put this on the agenda, but we haven't voted on that yet. So we'll figure that out shortly.
Sounds good.
We can also provide you with a written memorandum ahead of time if you'd like to receive that. I was kind of waiting to see if we were going to have executive session and how your focus was developing. But if it's, and I apologize for being late to this meeting, if it's really come down to the legal issue, then we can present that to you.
Yeah, I guess to the chair of committee, I guess my question in regard to that was at what level is the property owner held accountable for their own sidewalks? At what level does the city ask the property owner to take ownership of their sidewalk? Because what I'm asking that as one, and then with the understanding that once the city condemns a sidewalk, the cost of that sidewalk is added to the owner's taxes, or they are asked to pay for it. So
I guess to your point, I think we're all on the same page of, the idea of doing a municipal sidewalk program and taking on, that cost for the homeowner or spreading it out across the board. I think we can all appreciate the idea of that because we've seen constituents in our districts be burdened with crazy bills for their sidewalk. But I agree with you that the concern now really is, I think I don't want to speak for everyone else, but from my perspective, the liability of it is really what I'm, most concerned about. How, if we do this, let's say it's going to be treated like like a pothole. You're put on notice. You got to go fix that pothole. But if somebody in that period of time damages their tire, we're going to get sued and lose on that. Is it going to be the same case with a sidewalk? We are put on notice that a block is heaved up on, a sidewalk. 24 hours goes by, constituents walking down the street trips and breaks their leg. We're going to get sued. We have taken over that responsibility, and we're probably going to have to pay out for that. Correct? I mean, that's my biggest concern, and I guess my bigger concern is why can't we have this conversation in public right now? Why is it required? Why are we pushing and saying we need to go into executive session for this? This is something that if we're even going to consider this program, this is something that needs to be discussed. The taxpayers need to know we're self-insured. The taxpayers need to know that we're going to be on the line for something like this. That's my holdup with all of this.
So my understanding is we are currently liable for the sidewalks in that scenario. It's not a situation where we can say, oh, it's the property owner's responsibility, because it's in the public right of way, and we have a duty to condemn and force the property owner to replace the sidewalks if there's a defect. So if we receive prior written notice now, we can still be sued if we don't take any action.
Joe, Barry, one other question too. So I understand that we use executive session to address all the counselors at once, or when there's a quorum of counselors to give legal advice. But theoretically, we could also have individual counselors meet with the law department to get that advice as well too, right?
Yes, that's correct. And you're allowed to adjourn into executive session from a committee meeting as well.
Okay, thanks.
I can certainly follow up with our memo, and maybe that would, I think that would clear this issue up. If liability is the only question, I really think we can kind of answer that in a comprehensive way before the study session.
Share that not just with this committee, but can you share that with the council as a whole? Can you just email that out to the group, please? You take a look at that.
Email to the council as a whole.
Yes, please, if you could.
Yes, of course.
I'm going to ask the committee on, are we prepared to put this onto the agenda to in theory, to vote on this, or is this something that, you'd like to see the memo first, and I guess, where would you guys like to go with this? Because as it stands, I'll be frank, I'm not in favor of this, because I struggle with liability. Maybe, this memo will clear it up for me, but I just think this is going to open us up to a slew of lawsuits, and I think right now the position that we're in, I don't believe that we're going to be as liable as we will be when we implement this program. And I think there's got to be a larger outreach to the community than just saying July 1 we're going to start doing this program. I think that there's a lot of people that in my district that have a lot of questions and concerns about this.
I'm personally comfortable moving forward, but if there's not enough votes from the committee.
I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking to rush this, so if we want to take time, that's fine. I will just point out that other municipalities have managed to have a municipal sidewalk program without going under through lawsuits. But again, the liability is a very reasonable concern and one that we should make sure we have a thorough conversation about.
Okay, I'm gonna hold this, and again, Joe, if you could share that with the council as a whole, I think that more than just this committee are obviously interested in being a part of the discussion. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, and I think even if it's not formally on the agenda, as your attorneys, we're allowed to give legal advice to you at any time. So if councilors want to ask questions during the upcoming executive session on the settlement, that's perfectly proper.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is, let's see, it appears that it's a authorization for the city to accept a donation of a temporary easement for 345 West Fayette Street. Someone that could speak to that item.
Yes, Counselor, this is Mary Robison. 8, 9, and 10 all are related to the same project, and that project is building a retaining wall along Onondaga Creek on the west side between Walton and Fayette. So basically, it's across from where the creek walk is, where the serpent is. The creek bank is failing. It's adjacent to a parking lot. So item number 8 is accepting a temporary construction easement from 345 West Fayette Street. And in turn for accepting the temporary construction easement, which is anticipated to be 4 months construction period this summer and fall, excuse me, they have asked that we provide them with 40 parking spaces in Washington Street Garage. Because we're displacing 40, potentially up to 40 parkers. And we do have availability in the garage, so I don't think that's an issue. Otherwise, we would have to pay them to park in another parking lot, which would cost the city more money. Excuse me. It's not COVID, I swear.
You sneeze and everybody looks at you funny now.
I know.
Are there any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to put this on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
And item 10 is the seeker negative declaration associated with the construction of the retaining wall.
Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, motion to put that on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, I'm having a little bit of a hard time seeing if that is the last item, or is there other items that are on the agenda here? Because it appears that there's only 10 PDFs in the file that I was sent.
If you scroll down, there should be item number 11, which is called DPW Research Asphalt Artwork Grant, which I'm not familiar with, but I am familiar with number 12.
Okay, yeah. So I see the Bloomberg grant item.
So I can speak to the Bloomberg grant, Neil Burke, transportation planner. So this is a now recurring grant from Bloomberg that allows for creative reuse of asphalt, essentially spaces a roadway, paint murals, paint parking lots, things like that. So the match for the city is time, staff time, and we've been working with research to develop the design, and it is a proposal for the area in front of City Hall that's currently used as a small parking pad to turn that back into a plaza space using some relatively quick and easy materials, but in a way that looks dignified and appropriate for the space.
Any questions on that item? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to put that on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And 12 is, I guess, correcting a typographical error.
Yeah, this is an ordinance from 2020 where we're doing a Outer Eastwood sewer study, inflow and infiltration study, and somehow in the ordinance itself, there's a sentence about treating city-owned ash trees, which we are not studying or doing anything with ash trees, so we just need to remove that to make the ordinance accurate.
Okay. Make a motion to introduce that on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That concludes our meeting for today for the DPW. Thank you all and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.